chuckle and a twinkle in her eye. From the laddie to the basement, no nook or cranny goes unseen. With a hat of mismatched feathers, she's the prepper with a limp and a grin. Oh, the wonky prepper goes where others dare not venture. With a sense of humor and a bit of prep, she's the hero in this quirky venture.
Hello Wonkies, and those who love us, those who are just trying to educate themselves. Welcome to this week's episode of The Wonky Prepper. In this week's episode, we're going to have a look at what's in the news, what does invisible illness mean, and also we look at risk assessments and emergency procedures for places we frequent, e.g. work and school. So this week in the news, doctors and other health professionals are wanting to remind people who take 5 types of medication that keeping yourself out of direct sun during the really hot days or heat waves is a matter of safety. If you're on any kind of antidepressant that is classified as a tricyclic or TCA or SSRIs, these are known to disrupt the body's cooling mechanisms like sweating, which makes it incredibly difficult for your body to self-regulate and can cause major heat stroke. Antipsychotic medications can also impact the body's temperature by blocking dopamine and acetylcholine, which can lower the body's ability to feel thirsty or overheated. Heart medications, especially diuretics, are commonly prescribed for conditions like high blood pressure and heart failure. These drugs increase urine output, which can lead to dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, making it difficult for the body to sweat and cool down. For individuals with diabetes, insulin used during extreme heat presents its own set of challenges. According to CAMDA, high temperatures cause blood vessels to dilate, speeding up insulin absorption. This can lead to rapid drop in blood sugar levels, resulting in hypoglycemia. Insulin can also degrade in the heat, reducing its effectiveness. Experts advise storing insulin in a cool place such as a fridge and checking labels for specific storage guidelines. Now your bonus one, because I'm going to throw in a bonus one here, it's for those who have been through or are going through radiotherapy or chemotherapy. It's absolutely critical to limit sun exposure due to increased skin sensitivity. The skin is treated areas may be more susceptible to sunburn and long-term damage, potentially including skin cancers. Protecting the skin with sunscreen, protective clothing and seeking shade is vital, especially during peak sun hours. So welcome to this week's glossary. Now each week I'm going to attempt to make sense and explain terms and language that you may not know or understand when it comes to people with disabilities. Some of these I don't even know. I've come up with some doozies that I had no idea about, but this week we're going to start with something simple and we're going to talk about invisible disability, okay, or invisible illness or whatever. Now this term is one that causes all manner of upset to disabled people when they're out and about. There are literally thousands of videos of disabled people being approached by others accusing them of not being disabled and faking, because as far as they're concerned you are obviously not disabled enough. So let's make this as clear and thorough as we can. An invisible disability, also known as a hidden or non-visible disability, is a physical, mental or neurological condition that is not immediately apparent to others. these conditions can still significantly limit or challenge a person's movements, senses, or activities. Despite not being visible, these disabilities can greatly impact a person's daily life, including their ability to learn, work, and participate in social activities. Some examples of invisible disabilities: the mental health conditions. We're looking at depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder. Neurological conditions include epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, chronic pain, and fibromyalgia. Chronic illnesses could be things such as diabetes, Crohn's disease, and lupus. Chronic cognitive impairments such as learning disabilities, traumatic brain injury, and dementia. Sensory impairments, hearing loss, visual impairments, and inability to feel pain. That one's a rare one, but can I just say it's dangerous. And the other types are things like chronic fatigue, sleep disorders such as sleep apnea. Now, why are invisible disabilities important? Well, it's increased awareness. Recognizing that not all disabilities are visible is crucial for fostering inclusivity and understanding. Support and accommodations. Individuals with invisible disabilities may require specific accommodations and support in various settings, such as workplaces and educational institutions. It's all about combating misconceptions. It's important to dispel misconceptions about disabilities, such as the belief that they are not real or that individuals with them are exaggerating. And can I just say, many of us, far too many of us, are still disbelieved by medical professionals. In fact, there are still doctors who are teaching that fibromyalgia does not exist, and yet it has been around since the 1800s. Officially. Promoting self-identification. Having resources and information about invisible disabilities can empower individuals to better understand their own conditions and seek necessary support. So if you're an older person like myself and you believe that you are possibly autistic or have ADHD or something like that, and your doctor doesn't want to support you and send you to get a diagnosis, you might want to have a chat to them about the fact that you might actually need the necessary supports because you are no longer able to mask to the point that you have been during your life. Especially women who are coming into menopause will find that if they do have ADHD or autism, they will significantly increase the symptoms of which, and they will be less able to mask. Ask me how I know. Anywho, the other thing is reducing stigma. And there is so much stigma around invisible disabilities. Raising awareness about invisible disabilities can help reduce the stigma associated with having a disability that is not immediately apparent. In short, invisible disabilities are real and impactful, and increasing awareness and understanding is essential for creating a more inclusive society. And the amount of times of myself I've been approached by well-meaning people trying to give advice, or people that actually verbally attack me for not fitting into their idea of what disabled is ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. I remember one occasion I was unable to walk around the supermarkets. I do my best, and I use a trolley where I can to walk around the supermarkets because obviously it's a good way of getting some exercise in. But there are times that I can't, and I need to use the mobility scooter. And on this occasion I had an older woman, and she was definitely in her 60s, 70s, approach me and said, And I will say these are her exact words because they are burned into my memory. This was a particularly bad day. You know, if you walked the supermarket, you would lose a bit of weight and then you wouldn't need the scooter. Now, I'm not a little person at all. I'm not. And a lot of what I have on as weight is to do with coming into menopause. It's to do with a lot of hormone weight. It's a lot of other things. And yes, I probably haven't helped myself either in some respects, but a lot of it is to do with hormones and, you know, symptoms of other things that I have going on. So she didn't know any of this. So I decided that I would educate her because I was in that kind of mood, because I was in a lot of pain and I really didn't need her right that moment. And I ended up saying to her, sure, and I'll lose the weight and still have a broken back in 4 places, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and fibromyalgia. That all reduce my mobility no matter my size, and you will still be an ignorant, judgy old woman. Now, that was not my finest hour, and I did actually apologise to her. But the other thing I'd been dealing with at that moment was well-meaning people or able-bodied people who see someone coming along in a scooter or a wheelchair or something, or if you're walking with a walker, and they like to run in front of you and do it very quickly with a big grin on their face like, oh, I'm getting out of your way. Yeah, you're not helping. Most of us using those scooters have something wrong with our back and neck or hips or joints of some description. So leaping in front of mobility scooters, electric wheelchairs or other people using mobility equipment, you may see it as being helpful. We see it as you are causing us more discomfort due to the jolting that we experience having to make a fast stop so that we don't hit you. Let that sink in for a second. Because it does cause major issues. It's not funny. You're not being helpful. You are actually possibly putting that person in more pain. And the more it happens, because you won't be the first one that day that's done it, the worse it gets. And it makes it harder for people to go out and be normal. So please don't do that if you have the opportunity to stop. But there are many, many videos out there of people, you know, approaching others in disability parking spaces, people who don't have blue badges, and they've just decided they're going to park there, you know. But having a blue badge, can I just say, it's not a matter of going in, getting it and having it printed off. There is a lot that goes into it, and it can take months to get it. This isn't something that just happens overnight. You have to have the highest rate of PIP in mobility, or at least 8 to 10 points in mobility in PIP to get a blue badge. You can't just have a blue badge. There are some exceptions when it comes down to mental health, when it comes down to situations like PTSD, etc., or extremely elderly people. That's different again, but that's important too. So approaching people in their cars is like big no, unless they are parking there without a blue badge. Then please do carry on, approach them all you like, because that's not fair. Okay, so it's not just people who are able-bodied that do these things either. There is a lot of bigotry within the disabled community as well. The whole I'm more disabled than you because I'm in an electric wheelchair and you're not. I myself have been knocked over whilst using my walker by an electric wheelchair user and literally thrown into a tree and onto the floor. during the food festival that was being held here in York a couple of years ago. I mean, it's on twice a year anyway, but this one was a couple of years ago, and it did cause some quite big upset. I mean, even the people that were with this person didn't stop, they didn't look round, nothing to see if I was okay. And because they'd forced me out of the way so fast, I'd stumbled over my own feet with my walker. The walker went down, I went down because I tripped over the walker and slammed into the tree and then onto the floor. That's just the way it is. And that was someone in an electric wheelchair. That's not just, any old person. That's another disabled person. But there is a mentality within that, I go first because I'm in an electric wheelchair. Well, that's great, as long as you let the people who are not in the electric wheelchair get out of the way first. But this person was literally running people over and they didn't care. So, it is what it is. But the ignorance is everywhere, and honestly, it is a mindset which is taught. It's not something we're naturally born with. And as evidence, just go and watch some kids under the age of 10, maybe under the age of 10, definitely under the age of 6. If you've got mixed disabled kids and able-bodied kids, you go and watch them play, and I will tell you that disability bigotry is taught, because they are quite happy to play amongst themselves without any problem. So the point I'm trying to make is that not all disabled people look disabled. Most of us actually don't look disabled. Many assumptions make other people, or those who make the assumptions, look ignorant and rude. It's better to educate yourself so you aren't part of the problem. So I hope that brings a little bit more understanding into your life on invisible disabilities. Okay, so let's get into it. So prepping as a disabled people or for disabled people in your life has a lot of challenges that most able-bodied preppers don't need to consider. In as much as most things we will discuss on here are just as real and normal as everyone else, we need to look at things from a slightly different angle and put measures in place for should emergencies put us in a situation where we need to think about our safety and long-term survival. In this episode, we are going to look at assessing your needs and limitations when you or your loved one may need assistance or have to think fast on their own, both at home and out of the home. So the transcript for this podcast will be available through the store at Blue Self-Reliance. So it will be available there from the 23rd of this month, as I put up the transcripts monthly. So 23rd of July, this transcript will be available. So Lucas Veza O'Brien. Some of you will have heard of him, some of you will not. Most of you probably haven't heard of him. But he's a young 16-year-old lad with cerebral palsy who was left behind by all his teachers and support staff when a fire broke out in his school in Hyde in Greater Manchester in November 2024. His school's policy, and apparently the policy of most normal schools, has been to leave it to the fire brigade, which is also the advice from the fire service themselves. Only if they don't have the right equipment, by the way, can I just say, because I checked that with somebody that I know in the fire service and they said no, that's not correct, it's not correct information unless they don't have the correct equipment. If they don't have the correct equipment, we make sure that they are aware that they need to get certain equipment. So there's that. While the rest of the school is evacuated and the fire service will handle the evacuation of the disabled kids or child, Lucas was left to fend for himself in his wheelchair where he reported being able to smell the smoke which was getting closer to him. And in fact, by the time that someone did come to his aid, the classroom was starting to fill with smoke. Not only was he left on his own to deal with potentially burning alive, because that's what he was facing, but also the dangers of smoke inhalation, which is dangerous enough on its own, but for someone with a weakened immune system is potentially fatal at a lot lower levels than an able-bodied person. Lucas, however, because he's an amazing young man, has turned his experience into a chance to do some good and is now campaigning for every school that has disabled students to have better emergency training and emergency evacuation chairs and other equipment that may be needed. However, at this point, only 30,000 people have signed his petition, so whether we get to see real change or not in those areas may be down to noisier parents. Perhaps parents with means may look into doing something good for their local schools and providing the equipment and pay for training. You know, I mean, when I face situations like this, I sit there and go, what would Joseph Rowntree do? And if you don't know about Joseph Rowntree, maybe you should. Okay, so for me, there was a lot of stuff that went on with this story that really hammered home, you know, what was going on in our schools. Okay, so my kids are like in their 30s, you know, late 20s, 30s, you know, so I don't have a lot of access to schools now. I have what my friends tell me about, and I have what I read. I have a couple of friends who are now advocates for students and parents because things have gotten so bad between students and parents, students and schools, and the parents and the schools, that they feel that it's now necessary to have advocates, which is awful. Anywho, these are the points that really hammered it home for me. Number one, schools have lost their preparedness for everyday events that was front and centre when we were kids. We used to have a fire drill every start of the term within the first couple of weeks. This not only hammered home the procedures to we the students, but also the holes in the preparedness of the schools. Number two, his so-called support staff and the rest of the adult staff were happy to leave a child to die. Not just an able-bodied child, but a disabled child who was more vulnerable than the others and relied on the adults around him for his safety in such situations, and not one of them fought to help this kid. Not one of them. I don't know about you, but I sure as hell wouldn't be asking any of them to... I wouldn't be trusting any of them with my kid after that. Number three, schools, for all their bluff and bravado, are floundering in everyday health and safety and preparedness and duty of care for all students. Sure, in events such as this one, this really does show the holes, but in everyday support such as anti-bullying and other such day-to-day issues, they are failing across the board, and when they are failing our children so profoundly on an everyday level, how can they possibly be ready for the unexpected? Number four, the school obviously had no idea of the risk assessment for the needs and limitations for this particular student, and if they did nothing about it. Whether this was due to apathy, overwork, disinterest, lack of funding, or just plain miscommunication and lost documentation, the problem is within the system, and they had no clue or plan in place to help the most vulnerable member of the school community, and that is utterly unacceptable. So more and more of our kids, our special needs kids, kids with disabilities, etc., are being forced into mainstream schools, and they are being forced into mainstream schools because there aren't enough SEND schools out there. There's not enough schools out there for special education needs or disability kids, you know. So a lot of mainstream schools are opening up these disability centres and stuff like that. But they're not equipped for if something really big happens. Now, they've had the funding, and when a new special needs kid comes in, they're just not using it in the correct way. You know, they're then misusing it and using it for different things. You know, what we need is more equipment for emergencies in our schools for kids. And it may be that this equipment may only be used in one time, which is fine. But it may not be used by the SEND kid either. What about the football kid that's broken his ankle? Who's stuck in a wheelchair because he's got a broken ankle and a broken knee and can't do anything? You know, what about the kid that's had surgery that you forced back to school a week early against doctor's wishes, and they find themselves in a situation but they can't walk the way that you can walk and they need help? Do they get ignored as well? A lot of this equipment isn't just for disabled kids. A lot of this equipment is actually for able-bodied people who find themselves in a situation that they wouldn't normally be in. You know? And in a confused state like that, even as adults, many of us get hurt because you start to run and you start to panic, and then there's upset. You know? Kids tend not to panic so much. They still think it's a drill, whether it's for real or not, because they're used to it. If they're used to having this fire alarms go off. But many situations turn out they're not just a quiet thing that the alarm suddenly goes off. They tend to come along with a very loud bang, or they come along with the building shaking or something like that. The point is, the people, when they panic, get hurt. And if this equipment is there for everybody to use, then it might just get used for the right reasons and might just save a life. So anyway, enough of my ranting. This is where the carers come in, and when it comes to kids and our most vulnerable disabled and long-term sick people. We all know that the system lets us down, and with more funding being pulled around the world and the apathy and disdain being pushed worldwide, let alone in our own country, it's becoming more and more important for the everyday people and carers to make the lists and make the plans based on the person that they are caring for, and pushing and fighting to advocate for them for the changes to be made. Many of us are able to do this for ourselves as well. And who knows us better than ourselves? Apparently the doctors don't always believe that, but we know ourselves pretty well, right? Okay, because we live with ourselves 24/7, let's be honest. We know what we're capable of on our worst day, and we need to plan for those worst days when it comes to, you know, shit hit the fan situations or, you know, emergency events. Because Sod Law states it'll always happen when we're at our lowest. Let's be honest. Being prepared for anything becomes so much more important when we are disabled or long-term sick. Having plans in place based on your needs and limitations is absolutely the most important thing. The following has been put together as if we are the disabled, as if we, the disabled, are having to do this rather than our carers. Carers can absolutely use this list and use it in the same way for the person you are caring for. So these are the top 10 considerations when planning as a disabled person for an emergency event or shit hit the fan. Okay, SHTF. Number 1, your support network. You need to establish a closely knit and reliable group of friends, family or caregivers who understand you and your specific needs. We do this for our worst days because if we are going to have support, we need to plan for that. If that support can't get to us, we need to plan for that as well. Your support network needs to be able to help you as a priority as well as themselves. And if they can't, then they can't be in your support network, or they need to take a lesser role. People with their own families or people to take care of will tend to look after them first, and there is nothing wrong with that. So don't make your carers or family members feel guilty because they're not thinking of you. They're thinking of those directly around them first and who they can help quickly and efficiently, and then they'll get to you. Having someone on your support list whose priority in this situation will be you and themselves is incredibly important. It is, but it's not always going to happen. I don't have that. Just so you know, I don't even have that. I don't. For many of us, however, we have young families and children of our own and others who live with us in our homes to consider as well. It may not be possible to have someone whose specific task is you. In those situations, we need to take care of the able-bodied first, get them situated before taking care of ourselves or those in our care. It's a little like on the airplane when they tell you to put your mask on first, then take care of the kids or the person you're caring for. Because if you go down, what happens? You can't help anyone else, right? So you got to take care of you first, then take care of the other person. So yes, for those moments, the carer taking care of themselves first is important, as they make sure others are sorted, and then they can come and help you. However, this we can expand on another time. The point is, we really need one person who can put us and themselves first as priority. It won't always happen that way. But if you can get someone in your support network that you can do that with, then absolutely do that. So it brings us to number 2, personalised emergency plan. Woohoo! Each of us has different needs and limitations, and each one of us needs to have our own emergency plan for each place that we spend time. Do you know what? I really wish that I could English today. Oh my God. Emergency plan for each place we spend time. Home, work, schools, friends and families' homes, community spaces, hospitals, out in the wilds, like if you've gone into town or if you've gone into the country or something. A plan needs to incorporate all the space where you will take up space in your normal and occasional day-to-day life. In this plan, you need to have a plan for bugging in, bugging out, and access to essential supplies, equipment or tools that you may need. We need a plan to get home or to a safe space if we need to, and a plan for it if that is not possible. This will include everything we could need to keep ourselves safe until help arrives or until we can get to help or safety. Number 3, medication and medical equipment. We need to have a stock of our medications wherever possible. In many cases, it isn't due to the kinds of medications we take, but we can stock up over-the-counter alternatives wherever possible and discuss with your doctor and specialist, a registered herbalist, naturopath or other alternative medical professional, alternatives that can be taken or done should the need arise. This is really important. There are so many of us out there that are on prescribed medications that may or may not be available to us. Okay, so then we need to have a backup plan. And if you need to look at alternative medications for that, then you need to look at alternative medications for that and make sure that they work for you. Work with the alternative therapist and your doctor together and make sure that you have that set up. Learning as much as you can about alternative medicine is really important as well, and reading a few books may seem like a good idea, and it is. It doesn't compare to going through the process of learning a lot more about why we do things the way we do and what are the considerations and alternatives that need to be learned to do practice of any natural therapies safely. Medical equipment and tools, depending on the level of assistance needed, can be anything from a walking stick, a toilet stick, a range of fidget spinners, to a full bed breathing apparatus, strips monitoring equipment, and in some cases actual synthetic bubbles and hermetically sealed spaces. Yeah. In those cases, there will be an emergency plan in place already as part of having that synthetic bubble or hermetically sealed space. There will already be a plan in place, and you will have that plan. Lucky you is all I can say. I mean, obviously it's not great because you're stuck in there all the time, but you know, at least you've got an emergency plan, right? The more complex the situation and the equipment, the more help you will receive to plan for emergencies. Okay, so the help you will receive will be to plan for those emergencies. It may not be there come the emergency, but you have the resources to help you plan for it and to make sure that you can put things in place that do not include those other people, because they may not be available to you. In fact, some situations will require emergency procedures as part of the setting up process. Plans are put in place that could be as simple as a phone call, and others taking the wheel to have portable options available if you need to evacuate or in the case of power cuts, etc. So there may be breathing equipment, etc. that can be run on backup power or is portable and battery operated, or something like that you may be able to use in emergency and get hold of. And if so, then maybe you should do that. Make sure you have a readily accessible kit with extra batteries for assistive devices like hearing aids, communication devices, or mobility aids. It's really important. Okay, number 4, accessible transportation. Plan for accessible transportation options, such as accessible public transport or a range of assistance with personal vehicles if needed. Contact your local emergency management agency, emergency services, or local government for information on accessible transportation during evacuations. There is nothing more accessible than your own transportation, but there may be circumstances where you may not have that available to you, or you can't use it personally or without help of a driver. Having a backup plan is incredibly important, and knowing that others are part of that plan are equally important because it helps your head. It's not just about the physical at this point, it's about keeping your brain calm and not freaking out because you know that there's a plan. There's a communication plan. Develop a communication plan that includes pre-written phrases or a communication card for interacting with first responders, and ensure that your support network knows how to reach you and what your communication needs are. I personally have a printout, as I can fall into mutism when faced with a high stress situation with people I do not know and do not trust. On the sheet includes my medical information and the way of handling me, as I will flip out if spoken to or manhandled in the wrong ways. And I mean meltdown city as you have never seen it before. I mean, like, yeah, I've hurt people. So I don't want to do that, so I have it all written down. Having a copy of that on hand everywhere you go can make life easier for first responders, meaning that they will know just how to treat you to get you fixed up quickly and efficiently. This is also necessary for carers and support people to have copies of this as well for anyone within their care. That way, in the chaos, the correct information is given and nothing that could be vital, like a medication or severe allergy, could be forgotten. Now, I have a huge list of medications I can't take because I have reactions to them. I can take them within the confines of my own home, most of them, for a short amount of time. But if I was in an emergency situation and I had to have an injectable form of one of these medications, I couldn't do that. I would be in a much worse situation, and then there would be far more panicking than is necessary. So I have it all written down. Okay, number 6 is your emergency kit. Prepare a comprehensive emergency kit that includes essential items like water, food, first aid supplies, a flashlight, torch, can you tell this is American? And other necessary items like medication and emergency contacts and care instructions, ensuring it's accessible and easy to transport. This includes for service animals. Each service animal must have its own separate bag to yourself. Okay, so if you have a seeing eye dog, you need to have a bag for the dog. If you have an emotional support cat, you need to have a bag for the emotional support cat. And probably its cage, obviously. If you have other service animals, you need to make sure that they have all of their things available. Now, a service animal needs to be registered, just so you know, and here in the UK you can register your animal as a service animal for £50. There is a website, go look it up. Not even kidding. So, bug out bags or go bags are essential to the well-being of a person during a high-stress situation where they may or may not be coming home for several days. For those who are disabled, they are a lifeline, as they will contain specific items vital for the safety and comfort of the individual. Without a bag such as this, with the basic necessities, it may be near to impossible to look after a disabled person properly, making them a priority for people who may not have the time or resources to be able to make that person a priority. Now, one of the things that we don't talk about a lot, and I will talk about on a higher level, is decision making when it comes to disabled people and emergencies. But we'll talk about that in another time. Number 7, accessible evacuation routes. Identify and plan for accessible evacuation routes in your home, workplace and community, ensuring they are free from obstacles and have the easiest of routes to help you get to where you are going. It's really important. You can't just go, oh yeah, well, I'm just going to go round this back street, and it was bin day, and the bin day guys haven't been because there's this big event going on, and now you're blocked in and you've got no way back. You're kind of in a mess, you know. You've got to know your route. Okay. Local emergency procedures. Number 8. Understand your local emergency management procedures and participate in relevant training or drills offered. Here in the UK, you are best to get hold of First Line Services or the local council to find out what procedures are and what available training or drills are available for public inclusion. We are woefully underprepared in this country, and the government doesn't seem to care, which means that we should. Okay, so do what you have to do to find the help that you can. Financial resources. Have access to financial resources, whether that's such as cash or prepaid cards, to cover potential expenses related to transportation, accommodation, or purchasing emergency supplies. Cash is always king in these situations where digital or electronic funds may not be available due to blackouts. Having other options available for longer events such as gold, silver, precious, semi-precious gems or items of a barter may be a bit more sensible to have a few of those knocking around. You know, it's just what you can and cannot do. You know, it's up to you. Number 10, self-identification. Consider registering with your local emergency management agency as a person with a disability to receive targeted assistance during emergencies. Here in the UK, you want to make sure you are registered at the council. There are other support services such as waste disposal that can help you as a priority, not only utility services and other emergency services. These are very useful in a more urban environment. Now, most information on preparing for emergencies as a disabled person are not through UK sources. There's only 2 that I found on UK sources. Most of them are from international sources, such as Handicap International have a disability checklist for emergency response PDF. You can go and Google that. Again, the transcripts for this, including the links that I am giving you now, will be available on the Stan Store from the 23rd of July. 23rd of August, sorry. Whew. Online library, that's at the online library.iihl.org. You can find it there. There is an emergency preparedness guide for people with disabilities special needs PDF through getprepared.gc.ca. Yes, it's Canadian. It's awesome. There is a really good article called Key Considerations: Disability Inclusive Humanitarian Action and Emergency Response in South and Southeast Asia and Beyond, and that's through socialscienceinaction.org. Advice for disabled persons and carers is through prepare.campaign.gov.uk, and that's pretty much all that we've got for that. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and I have really enjoyed today's episode and hanging out with you. So just remember, you guys, stay weird, stay ready, stay you, wonky and all. See you next week.